Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 185, Troubles Brewing. The episode begins with Ash and the gang celebrating Ash's victory over Morty by treating themselves to a little snack from the Ecruteak City Pokemon Center. Ash could barely relax during this break, though, as due to just beating Morty, he already wanted to know where the 5th gym badge was, with Brock taking out his map and informing him that there was now 2 towns with gyms close by, being Mahogany Town and Olivine City. Brock added that since these 2 areas were of equal distance from them right now, they could choose whichever one they wanted to go to first. So Ash started debating, only for Misty to cut him off, stating that they should think about this later, and instead go to a local tea party that she had just happened to see a poster for in the Pokemon Center. Ash obviously still wanted to go to the next gym, but Misty attempted to reason with him, stating that Togepi would probably really enjoy this cute tea party, and it was about time that they did some sightseeing, and we had a filler episode before the next gym. Okay, not that very last part. Eventually, it seemed as though Misty got her way in the argument, and they were going to head to this tea party, but as Ash and the gang were leaving the Pokemon Center, they then spotted an Eevee running around outside, looking as though it was lost. So Misty ran over to it and hugged it as tightly as she could, thinking it was extremely cute, and also because she wanted to potentially save the Eevee if it was feeling lonely. Brock, however, assures Misty that this Eevee probably wasn't very lonely, as it looked as though it wasn't malnourished or anything, so it was probably being taken care of by a trainer. It seemed that Brock's assumption was right, as immediately after he said this, Eevee started making crying noises, apparently calling for someone, and as if on cue, its trainer showed up, screaming that she was desperately looking for it, practically panting at this point due to how fast she had been running around. When she spotted her Eevee with Misty, she immediately asked for it back, questioning if the Eevee had caused them any trouble, as Misty confirmed that it definitely didn't, and willingly gave back the Eevee, even though she probably didn't want to, due to how cute she found it. As thanks for getting Eevee back, the girl introduced herself as Sakura, leading Misty to question her on if she knew where the local tea party she had heard about was located. This made Sakura laugh, as she revealed that it was simply at her house, as her and her sisters were the hosts of the tea party. Sakura then escorts Ash and the gang to her house, where the tea party was located, and explains that her house that she lived in acted as a school or dojo for only girls. Sakura then gets dressed in a kimono to look extra good for the tea party, as Ash and the gang compliment her on her awesome style. Especially Brock, who was really attracted to girls in kimonos, so he really complimented Sakura on her beauty, which caused Sakura to get a bit weirded out, rightfully so, and walk off to explore the rest of the area, where there was currently a whole bunch of other people waiting for the tea party, including several other girls in kimonos, which Brock noticed. Upon scene 1, Brock is instantly fucking extremely love-struck by her, and thinks Cupid shot him with an arrow or some shit, as he desperately goes up to the woman and compliments her on her kimono, claiming that he wanted to be her forever husband, leading this girl in the kimono to get extremely weirded out as well, and walk away. It was okay though, as Brock had then spotted yet another girl in a kimono, and remembered that this house acted as a school or dojo for girls, when he spotted this girl in a kimono giving a lecture about some flowers to some other girls. Brock uses the flowers to his advantage and grabs them out of the vase by her and tries to give them to her, also confessing his love to her, only for this woman to just stand there and question what the fuck Brock was talking about, meaning that Brock was rejected again. It was still okay though, as Brock still had plenty of beautiful girls in kimonos in his sights, as Ash and the gang continued to walk around the dojo campus. He spotted that one of these women was playing a sitar, and he ran over to her and tried to play the sitar for her, forcibly grabbing it from her hands. This just made the girl somewhat pissed off, especially since Brock's music skills were not the best, so Brock gets rejected yet again. Was Brock done yet though? No. As he then noticed yet another girl in a kimono sitting alone by a tea stand, and happily bowing to them when she spotted them, leading Ash and the gang to bow back. Brock, of course, then takes the opportunity to try and flirt with her, stating that she was as beautiful as a moxasino, handing her a brush for her hair. Misty was fucking done by this point, and grabs Brock by the nose instead of the ear this time, pulling him away. He soon crawls his way back though, and the woman asks Ash and the gang if they wanted some tea, to which they obviously reply yes, because it was a goddamn tea party. They go to drink, but the woman informs them that they had to be classy at a tea party and drink the tea with the cup turned around. So, Ash and Misty oblige to this, but Brock, being absolutely distracted by the woman's beauty, instead just spins around, turning himself around, as opposed to the tea. Just then, Sakura reunites with Ash and the gang, revealing that the woman Ash and the gang were talking to was actually her older sister, Satsuki. Sakura then tries some of the tea, and is so amazed by it that she asks her sister how she made it. However, before her sister could answer, her 3 other sisters also come up and join the conversation, leading Brock to hurriedly hide behind Ash, as he recognized those 3 women as the other girls that he had tried to flirt with. So, he had tried to flirt with every single one of Sakura's sisters. As Sakura introduces them as Samomo, Tameo, and Kom though, Brock's attempt to hide behind Ash in fear didn't work, as all 3 of the girls had recognized him and stated what Brock had tried to do to them, which obviously made Brock uncomfortable, as now it had been found out how much of a player he was, flirting with so many different women. Brock wanted to choose just one of them, but he knew that none of them would accept him now, and let's be real, he couldn't choose his favorite girl anyways, he liked them all too much. Anyways, Sakura's sisters then introduced themselves as the famous Four Beautiful Tea Ceremony Sisters, but Sakura didn't like this title as, she was the fifth sister. Why weren't they known as the Five Beautiful Tea Ceremony Sisters? This leads Comb to counter that the reason why they didn't count Sakura was because even though she was their fifth sister, she wasn't beautiful, so she wouldn't fall under the designation of a beautiful tea ceremony sister. Ash and the gang realized how familiar this seemed as Sakura got upset, with Ash pointing out to Misty how her and Sakura seemed to have quite a bit in common since they both had sisters who weren't super fond of them, referring of course to Misty's more famous sisters who didn't think that she was beautiful. This leads Misty to go up to Sakura and comfort her, explaining that she had sisters who didn't like her either, stating that they were also all older than her and also only focused on themselves. Misty and Sakura having this in common leads them to becoming friends, and they only become even closer friends when they reveal to each other that they both preferred water Pokemon over any other type. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were in the dojo as well, attending a class put on by an old woman, which was making them extremely bored. James and Meowth were especially bored with a class being taught at a tea party, two things that they were bored by, and tried to question Jessie on how they should behave, believing that she would know, since, this was probably something she would like, a tea party. She was a womanly woman after all. Jessie revealed that she was bored as fuck too, and didn't know how to act, with James suggesting that maybe they should drink their tea that was sitting by them, as to not look disrespectful. Jessie thinks that this was a good idea, and drinks the tea, proclaiming that it was tea time and that she was ready to drink some awesome tea, wanting to impress all of the other girls in the class that she was just like them, drinking tea. However, she quickly realized that the tea tasted like shit, so she had to use all her power to not spit it out and gulp it down as fast as she could, as she had now gotten the attention of all of the other girls, and she didn't want to upset them by spitting out the tea that they liked. To make sure she didn't upset them, she then lied that the tea was very, very good, and James and Meowth proceeded to drink the tea and found out that it tasted like shit as well, but did the same thing as Jessie as to not piss off all the other girls. Upon hearing that Team Rocket apparently loved the tea, the class instructor then suggests that they try the tea cakes that were made, and when Team Rocket do, they complain that they were good, but they just weren't filling enough. This leads the instructor to lecture Team Rocket that what mattered was the tradition of the tea and the tea cakes, not the quantity of them, explaining that the whole point of the tea ceremony was to honor ancient traditions, such as drinking tea, as well as praying, of course. So this leads all of the other girls to close their eyes and pray, and while they were distracted with their eyes closed, Team Rocket then gets up from the table they were sitting at, and sneak around behind the instructor to find an entire jar of tea cakes, leading Team Rocket to devour them all, because they didn't see the value in tradition over quantity. I mean, they just wanted as much food as possible. Unfortunately for Team Rocket, they were way too loud while they were eating, so this causes the instructor to open up her eyes, becoming interrupted from her prayer, as she orders a guard at the school to restrain Jessie and stop her from eating any more of the cakes. However, all this did was make Jessie angry, so she thrashes around in the guard's arms, knocking him over into a pot of boiling water that was being used to make tea. This causes the guard to scream in pain, and these screams are heard by Ash and the gang and the 5 tea ceremony sisters, so they all run over to the source of the noise, and spot Team Rocket, who proceed to do their motto, continuing to eat tea cakes while doing so, and removing the fancy attire that they were wearing for the tea party. Sakura simply cuts them off, yelling at them to shut the fuck up, since they were at a tea party that was supposed to be relatively calm, which pisses Jessie off as she sends out her Arbok to attack, leading the 5 tea ceremony sisters to send out their Pokemon, being Sakura's Eevee, obviously, as well as her 4 sisters, Flareon, Umbreon, Vaporeon, and Jolteon, respectively. Upon seeing the evolutions, Team Rocket decides that they were going to steal them all. Sakura wasn't going to let that happen, though, wanting to prove herself for her sisters, so she ordered the first attack, commanding her Eevee to use Tackle. However, this was countered by Arbok using Headbutt. So Eevee then tries to use Sand Attack to blind Arbok, but Arbok simply turns around, making the Sand Attack useless. Arbok then uses Wrap to strangle Eevee with its tail, and then Arbok finishes off Eevee by tossing it to the ground. Sakura runs to her now fainted Eevee to protect it, and demands that her 4 sisters do something to help, but they simply still sat and watched, leading Ash and Misty to jump in, with Ash sending out his Totodile, and Misty sending out her Poliwhirl. Seeing as it was now 2 against 1, James then sent out his Weezing, and had it use Smog. However, the smoke was quickly cleared away by Poliwhirl using Bubble Beam. With Weezing distracted, Ash and Misty took the opportunity to do a dual water gun with Totodile and Poliwhirl, which sent Team Rocket blasting off. With Team Rocket gone, Misty and Sakura resume their conversation by the lake, as Eevee and Togepi play together with each other, until Sakura grabs Eevee in fear of it falling in the lake. Sakura and Misty talk about that even though they were the youngest of their sisters, they still had advantages over the rest of them. Yeah, maybe the fact that they were actually somewhat nice in comparison to all their sisters, it seemed like. I mean, Sakura's sisters didn't do anything to help her Eevee, man. Sakura then questions Misty on if she missed her sisters, despite how they didn't seem to get along, and Misty reveals that she does, but she was quite content simply traveling with Ash and Brock through Johto so that Ash could compete in the Johto League, stating that Ash and Brock were like her new family, and they traveled together no matter what. Upon hearing about the Johto League, Sakura revealed that she wanted to enter the Johto League as well, and would like to travel with some people on her journey, just as Misty was with Ash and Brock. This leads her to request if she could join the gang. Misty would obviously love this, as her and Sakura had just become great friends, although she knows that she would need Ash and Brock's approval to just add a new member to the gang. So, she waits for them to come back from the store where they bought some medicine, and they eventually do. Brock and Ash reveal that they had bought the medicine for Sakura's Eevee after it was heavily beat up in the battle against Team Rocket. Sakura thanks them, although Misty then butts in, telling Ash and Brock that Sakura wanted to join the gang. Ash and Brock, of course, had no problem with this whatsoever, which pleased Sakura, although she revealed that before she left, she would need her 4 sisters' permission to do so, and also requested that even if she was able to leave, they didn't leave until tomorrow, because she had a performance with her sisters that she had to attend. Ash and the gang agree to these conditions, and Sakura invites them to go see the performance tomorrow, which Ash and the gang also accept. The next day, the performance started, and the goal of the performance was for it to be somewhat traditional, so the 5 girls were holding traditional umbrellas and dancing traditional dances in front of a relatively large crowd, with the sitar playing in the background. While Ash and the gang were watching the performance, unfortunately, Sakura dropped her umbrella, messing up the performance, leading her to run backstage with her sisters and apologize to them. As they scold her for her failures, this leads Sakura to reveal that she wanted to leave Echo City and join Ash and the gang on their journey, stating that if she wasn't good at doing the traditional tea shit that her sisters were, then she should make herself useful and do what she actually wanted to do, which was become a Pokemon Master and go challenge the Johto League. However, despite Sakura's failures, her sisters were still against this, as they simply wanted her to get better at the tea ceremony shit, stating that if she couldn't handle a tea ceremony, then there was no way that she could safely handle a Pokemon journey. However, this led Ash and the gang to butt in, explaining that they would treat her as one of their own and do everything they could to protect her, stating that they would be like 2 brothers and a new sister to her. Ash and the gang's convincing manages to work a little bit, as Sakura's sisters remember how Ash and Misty had stopped Team Rocket, stating that if they could do that, then maybe they could protect their sister. So, they decide to let Sakura go, but only under the condition that Ash and Misty could prove themselves by defeating the sisters in battle, since they believed that whoever was stronger would be who Sakura was the most safe with. Ash and the gang happily agreed to this, as Satsuki announces the battle conditions, being that there would be 3 one-on-one battles. One of the sisters would go against Ash, one of the sisters would go against Misty, and one of the sisters would go against Brock, in an effort to test them all. The first battle was going to be Sumomo versus Ash, as Sumomo called out her Vaporeon from a Lure Ball. Before Ash could send out his Pokemon, though, Misty then jumped in and sent out her Poliwhirl, wanting to battle Sumo instead. The battle began with Poliwhirl and Vaporeon both using Tackle as they collided into each other. Vaporeon tried to get the advantage by using Sand Attack to blind Poliwhirl, but Poliwhirl dodged and used Double Slap on Vaporeon. Vaporeon countered by using Quick Attack, which was strong enough to knock Poliwhirl into a nearby river. Poliwhirl manages to climb out of the water and use a Water Gun, which Vaporeon counters with the same attack, so the Water Guns collide, effectively doing nothing to either of the Pokemon. So, Vaporeon then uses Aurora Beam to knock Poliwhirl back into the water, knocking him out in the process, because Aurora Beam was a lot stronger than a goddamn Quick Attack. This meant that Misty had lost the battle, but fortunately, Ash and the gang still had 2 more battles to prove themselves, and the next battle was Satsuki and her Jolteon versus Ash and his Pikachu, as Satsuki sent out Jolteon from a Moonball. Right before the battle could begin, though, Team Rocket showed up, returning from their previous blastoff, this time with a new machine under their Meowth balloon, which was a specialized cage with 5 compartments, a compartment for each of the Eevee sisters' Pokemon. They were determined to steal them still. James then sent out his Victreebel to start battling the Eeveelutions, starting with Eevee, which Sakura had sent out to battle Victreebel. Unfortunately, Eevee immediately got hit by Victreebel's Vine Whip, and it tried to counter with Tackle, but Victreebel was able to use Tackle first, and use yet another Vine Whip, with these 2 attacks being enough to send it flying into the 4th cage. Ash then sent out his Chikorita to battle Victreebel, and Chikorita was able to dodge Victreebel's Vine Whip, and hit Victreebel with a Vine Whip of its own, in addition to a Razor Leaf. Jessie saw that Victreebel was beginning to get in trouble, so she sent out her Arbok to assist, leading Misty to send out her Staryu to assist Chikorita. Staryu immediately uses a combination of Tackle and Rapid Spin against Arbok, which sends Arbok flying into James, knocking both of them into 2 of the cages. Box 5 for James, and Box 1 for Arbok. Chikorita then uses Vine Whip on Victreebel, which tosses it into Jessie, knocking them both into the same cage, being Box 3. With Jessie and James both locked in cages, Meowth knew that there was no way he could win on his own, and he was intimidated by Staryu and Chikorita, who were now circling him, so he decided to surrender, willingly walking in to cage number 2. With Team Rocket now stopped, this gave Tomeo the opportunity to send out her Umbreon from a fastball and have it use the speed from its agility, along with the force from its headbutt, to free Sakura's Eevee from one of the cages. With Eevee now free, Misty and Sumomo team up and have both their Staryu and Vaporeon use Water Gun to send Team Rocket blasting off, destroying the balloon and all the cages in the process. This leads Sakura to realize that Ash and the gang, along with her sisters, were purely just better trainers than her. Because of this, she began to contemplate if she really wanted to go on a Pokemon journey after all, but she couldn't come to a decision before Ash and Satsuki continued their battle, with Jolteon starting off with Thundershock, but Pikachu managing to dodge it by jumping up. Pikachu then goes in for a Thunderbolt, but Jolteon is able to block by using a combination of Reflect and Thunder Wave. Both of these attacks combined put up a major shield against electric attacks, so Ash decided to break the shield by using a Tackle and then finish Jolteon off with a Thunder, knocking it out. This meant that the scores were now tied, and Brock's battle would decide whether Sakura would be allowed to leave or not. So, Brock tried to begin a battle against Tomeo, But Sakura interrupts, having made up her mind, revealing that she didn't want to go on a journey after all. Well, at least one with Ash in the gang. She still wanted to go on a journey, but she wanted to start off by herself so that she could become stronger on her own and not have to rely on anyone to save her all the time. Admitting that although she could learn a lot from Ash in the gang, she knew she was making the right decision in order to improve herself. Further stating that if she went in her current state, then she would just slow Ash in the gang down. However, Satsuki retorted that she may not slow Ash in the gang down for long, as she was already seemingly getting stronger, being able to make a decision on her own and become more independent just like that. Also adding that Sakura merely had to have more faith in herself. Despite this, Sakura was still content with her decision of going on a journey on her own. However, she requested that her sisters train her first so she could become stronger before even going on a journey. The four sisters agreed, with Satsuki being the first. Ash and the gang respect Sakura's decision and ask Sakura and her sisters to escort them to the crossroads that led to both Olivine City and Mahogany Town. The sisters did this, however, when Ash and the gang arrived, they still couldn't decide which place to go to first. The decision is eventually made when Brock looks in his guidebook and finds out that Olivine City had a beach, and Ash and the gang really wanted to go to a beach, so Olivine City first it was. Sakura declares that one day she would become strong enough to go to Olivine City as well, and Ash and the gang wish her luck as they say their goodbyes and head for Olivine City.